Toronto Blue Jays trade rumors are really starting to pick up, and following what has been a very solid stretch of play for the Toronto Blue Jays, some brand new reports have dropped revealing a very interesting trade update. We're going to break down that exact trade update as well as discuss multiple updates ahead of the biggest series of the year by far against the Yankees that starts tonight. So, folks, you're going to want to stay tuned till the end of the video. But before we get into it all, if you're part of the percentage, you aren't subscribed to the channel, you guys have been absolute beasts with the support lately. Make sure to hit the subscribe button. Thank you guys again for your continued support over here as we're on the road to 20K subscribers. Folks, a lot to go over today, and there is there's some trade talks going around. The trade deadline is inching closer and closer, and what that means is that, of course, the Toronto Blue Jays are going to have to really get involved in a lot of these talks, whether that be for a hitter, and most importantly here lately, a starting pitcher. And we know they're going to be active in these talks, but a brand new rumor and report has dropped linking a new player to the Toronto Blue Jays. And I want to bring this up specifically because ahead of tonight's series, it's going to be a big series tonight. There's no doubt about it. They're sitting, pretty good right now in the standings, and the big question mark is A, how will Max Scherzer hold up? And B, what does the team look like beyond that into the rotation? And with Eric Lauer having an okay start yesterday, it's interesting. So the Jays are one of the hottest teams in baseball. They've turned things around, currently sit at 44-37, 2.5 game deficit of the Yankees. Toronto will be a team to watch closely as the trade deadline inches closer and closer. However, they need to pair, another starter with Gausman, Bassett, and of course, Berríos. And Trade Idea sends Rangers Tyler Mahle to Toronto. This is interesting here. In this proposal, the Jays acquire starting pitcher Tyler Mahle from the Texas Rangers. He's currently on the 15-day IL, and he hasn't pitched since June 10th, but he has been unbelievable on the mound. Now, according to Jeff Passan, Mahle has a fair chance of being traded, and Toronto is listed as a potential destination. So this one is extremely, extremely intriguing to me for a few different reasons. We haven't really spoke about him on the channel, very much. There's been some rumblings in the past and previous years, I think 2023 maybe, whenever it was, with the Blue Jays and Mahle. This is a very interesting one. And, Jeff Passan came out and said supposedly that he is going to potentially get traded at the trade deadline. The starting pitching market and just the trade deadline in general this season, it's going to be pretty thin. Like, a lot of teams are going to be buying. Not a ton of teams are going to be selling valuable assets, which is why if you're the Jays, you have to react pretty quickly here. And this one now becomes extremely, extremely interesting. And in case you're unfamiliar, in 14 starts this season, you can see there he has a 2.34 ERA in 77 innings. He's given up just 60 hits in those 77 innings as a whip of 1.13. He is an elite starter this season when healthy. The problem is he hasn't pitched since June 10th. And if there is one hiccup in this, it's that the Jays, would they want to bring on another potentially injury-riddled starter? That's the big question. However, article goes on to say why it makes sense for Toronto. Of course, we all know why. You bring in another, veteran starter to help with Gausman, help out Bassett, help out Berríos, of course, as well. And again, Mahle is not 100% available yet, though Jeff Passan said that he should be. And if that's the case, Toronto has to make calls ASAP. Now, this is a rental, which is good and bad. The good news about that is that you wouldn't have to go up as many prospects or as much prospect capital. The bad news, of course, we know the Jays, Keegan Matson came on my show and said it, they prefer a deal where there's at least one more year of control. You take that year to negotiate, and then you extend like they did with José Berríos. And there is a lot of pitchers out there with, control on them. It's just a matter of, those are a lot more difficult to actually obtain because A, it costs more, and B, a lot of these guys are not necessarily as available, right? However, for Tyler Mahle, it becomes interesting now. Let's look at his stats. And of course, we think back to a lot of his time with Cincinnati in that 2022 season. I was thinking of when he got traded to, I believe it was the Twins. He is having a very good year. He has struggled to stay healthy. And that's why I don't think it is not necessarily the best fit, but it could be a bit of a buy low. But again, the health is going to be the biggest question. But in 14 games this year, he's put up a 2.0 WAR and a 2.34 ERA. Now, again, I'm going to keep prefacing this by saying, if they make this, move, it would have to be, maybe like an Aurelvis Martinez center package, all these different things. The injuries remain a question. However, when keeping that in mind, if you can find a way to get Tyler Mahle for pretty cheap here, and let's assume, they do their due diligence and things like that, and he's, ends up being healthy. Of course, he hasn't pitched since June 10th, which is about 20 days. He has some upside here, and the Jays have a lot of reinforcements coming. Like, how will Max Scherzer do on Wednesday? How will, Alek Manoah return? Like, they're in a position where they could actually afford to take a shot on someone who was fairly durable for, 2021, 2022, but has struggled lately. Could take a shot on somebody who maybe isn't not, again, I don't want them to take a shot on somebody who's not durable, but again, he pitched 14 games, just dealing with an injury, assuming that's all good and he can come back. You can then take a shot on him. You then have Alek Manoah potentially coming back. You have Max Scherzer. You have Eric Lauer, who he is assuming he would replace Eric Lauer. It starts to make, a little bit of sense. And again, I'm going to keep using this, and I'm going to say it again. Aurelvis Martinez, probably the most likely Jays prospect that is on the way out in any deal. They have a lot of AAA guys who could potentially be, big candidates to be traded this trade deadline. The problem is, again, the buyer's market isn't as strong, at least up to this point. There's still a month left compared to previous years. And that's both fortunate and unfortunate. Like on one side, the Jays have a lot of prospects they can maybe trade in the offseason, but you're going to win it this year. And of course, it's going to be difficult to do if you can't find teams to deal with. But I like this idea a lot. And I want you to let me know down below in the comment section what your thoughts are, because no one's really talking about it, but it makes some sense. Yes, the injuries are a bit of a concern. He hasn't pitched a lot the past couple of seasons, really. 23 starts in 2022, 2023 only had 5 starts. The year after that only had 3 starts. So hasn't really pitched much the last couple of years. Could be a buy low candidate, having a very good season. So I guess kind of buy high, buy low depending, because of course previous years you have to take that into account as well. But at the same time, like, you're looking at a guy who has been dominant thus far this season for the Rangers, who are supposedly going to be sellers as well. So it's going to be interesting there. Let me know down below. Do you like the fit? Do you think it's too, worrisome because of injuries? I think with the, with how many starters the Jays actually have coming back, with, Alek Manoah, Max Scherzer, all these different guys, you can maybe afford to take a risk on somebody if he's like one of the only ones available and they want to act early. Someone else to keep in mind here as well is Luis Severino. He is, a huge trade target. He can't wait to be traded. I don't know if the Jays pursue him as much because, again, a 4.83 ERA. He's not having a great year. Started off pretty good, signed that 3-year deal, first year of a 3-year deal. So he hasn't been great at home, been really good on the road. We'll probably have another video coming out on him as the trade deadline inches closer and closer. But this one's going to be interesting as well. Like, there is starting pitchers in the market, but there isn't that ace that we've seen in previous years, or really, even a José Berríos type deal. So going to be interesting there. And again, let me know what your thoughts are on these 2 starters, and if you guys have thought of Tyler Mahle. Now, let's dive into some updates for tonight's game. Now, this is pretty big. Carlos Rodon, the starters are locked in here, and I said Wednesday for Max Scherzer. I was actually misspeaking. It's today that Max Scherzer pitching. So it's Rodon versus Scherzer, Max Fried versus Gausman, Will Warren versus José Berríos, and then Clark Schmidt versus Chris Bassett. So on Canada Day, we have a good matchup of course, Clark Schmidt, or on Canada Day, rather, Max Fried versus Kevin Gausman, an absolute pitcher's duel, we would assume, if Kevin Gausman can pitch like he did the last couple times. Today, it's going to be tough. Now, we assume the Jays are going to stack up on right-handed batters against Carlos Rodon, the lefty. How Max Scherzer will fare against a very good lineup, this is going to be telling for not only the pitching staff, but what Ross Atkins is going to do beyond that into, of course, the trade deadline and things like that. This is a massive, massive start for him. And then, of course, beyond that, you have some pretty good starters the rest of the way. You take care of Scherzer's start. After that, I'm pretty confident in the Jays' approach here. And Addison Barger, they asked if he feels any different against, of course, a rival in a huge series. He said, I think I stay level. I don't even know if I didn't even realize we were playing the Yankees, but now I do. So he has confidence. He's radiating confidence. And Jeff Hoffman has been as well. It's a quick tidbit there. Since June, he's had 2 ERA, which is very encouraging. But folks, that'll wrap it up. Let me know down below what your thoughts are. Thank you guys for watching. See you later.